Welcome to all of you in this video. In today's video, we will discuss about emergency provisions. Now, what are emergency provisions? As we know that Indian polity is federal in form but unitary in nature. So the emergency provisions are one of those unitary features which have been contained in the Indian polity and then constitution. Now, why they have been contained, why they have been kept there? They have been kept to ensure the unity and integrity of India and to save it from the precipitous tendencies which raise their heads time and again. So let's start with the emergency provisions. So in Indian constitution, we have three types of emergency provisions. The first one is called the national emergency. The second one is called the president rule. The third one is called the financial emergency. So as far as the national emergency is concerned, it has been mentioned in Article 352 of the Indian Constitution. The President's rule has been mentioned combinedly in two articles, Article 356 and 365, and the financial emergency has been mentioned in Article 360. Now let's talk about their proclamation and imposition. So as far as the national emergency is concerned, it is proclaimed on the grounds of three reasons, that is war, external aggression and armed rebellion. So whenever there is a war, external aggression or armed rebellion, national emergency is proclaimed. And as far as the president's rule is concerned, okay, Article 356 says that when the central government decides that the any state government, any specific state government cannot be carried on according to the constitution or according to Article 365, whenever it is satisfied that a particular state is not complying with the instructions of the central government, then it is imposed. So we can say that the president's rule is imposed in a particular state on the grounds of failure of constitutional machinery in that state. As far as the financial emergency is concerned, it is imposed whenever there is a threat to the financial stability and credit of India. Now, let's see that what happens to the state governments when there is a proclamation or imposition of these emergency provisions. So as far as the national emergency is concerned, when it is proclaimed, the state government remain intact, but it functions and acts according to the instructions given by the central government. But in case of president's rule, it doesn't happen. In case of president's rule, the state government gets dissolved or suspended completely. So in case of national emergency, the state government does not get suspended. In case of the president rule, the state government is completely suspended. Okay, and the president is given the power to administer the state with the help of some administrators. Now, as far as the financial emergency is concerned, here also the state governments are not suspended, but their financial autonomy is compromised. Now, let's talk about the power which the central government enjoys during the imposition of such emergency provisions. So as far as the national emergency is concerned, when the national emergency is in proclamation or operation, the central government can make laws on all the subjects enumerated in the state list, but it cannot delegate this power to someone else. Now here, in case of president's rule, okay, because there is no state government, all the acts are made by the parliament, and the parliament can delegate this power, that means the power of implementation or execution, to any person, any authority like the president, and the president carries it out. Now, in case of financial emergency, okay, the central government acquires full control over the state's financial matters. So this is about their powers. Okay, now let's see that for how long these emergency provisions are effective. So as far as national emergency is concerned, no maximum period has been written or enumerated. Okay, it can be continued after every 6 months. So what happens in case of national emergency? If it has to be proclaimed, in that case, after its proclamation, within 1 month, it has to be approved by both the houses of the parliament with the special majority. Okay, and once it is in force, after 6 months, it can be again renewed with the same kind of special majority in both the houses of parliament. Now, as far as the president's rule is concerned, when the president rule is imposed in a state, after 2 months or within 2 months of its imposition, it has to be approved by both the houses of the parliament, but not by special majority, but by a simple majority. And similar is the case with the financial emergency. The financial emergency has also to be approved within 2 months of its imposition or proclamation, but with simple majority in both the houses of the parliament. Now, let's see that whether the relation between the state government and the central government undergoes any modification or not. So as far as the national emergency is concerned, the relation between the central government and the state government gets completely modified, because the state governments, they no longer act as sovereign governments. They act as administrative units only. Similarly, in case of president's rule, because there is no state government in the state concerned, okay, the state central relationship gets completely modified. Now, but as far as the financial emergency is concerned, okay, there is not much changes in the center state relationship, except the acquirement of the financial powers by the central government. Now, let's talk about the renewal. So as already I have told, that as far as renewal is concerned, okay, it requires, the national emergency requires special majority in both the houses after every 6 months. Okay, here in case of president's rule, it cannot be renewed after 3 years. So the maximum period for which the president rule is actually imposed, it is 3 years. Okay, and beyond that it cannot be renewed. But whenever the renewal process has to be done, it has to be done with the simple majority. And in case of the financial emergency, it is the same. The financial emergency is also renewed, okay, with the simple majority in both the houses of the parliament. Okay, now let's talk about the fundamental rights. What happens to the fundamental rights? Okay, so see, as far as the national emergency is concerned, Article 358 says that if the national emergency has been proclaimed on grounds of war or external aggression, all the 6 fundamental rights promised by Article 19, they automatically get suspended. And Article 359 says that other fundamental rights can also be suspended, except the fundamental rights enumerated under Articles 20 and 21 during the proclamation of a national emergency. And here, in case of president's rule, okay, no fundamental right is compromised. No fundamental rights are affected. So in case of national emergency, the fundamental rights are affected. Okay, the fundamental rights promised by Article 19 are automatically suspended when the national emergency has been imposed on grounds of war or external aggression, and other fundamental rights can also be suspended, except those fundamental rights which have been enumerated under Articles 20 and 21. So here, in case of national emergency, the fundamental rights are affected, but in case of president's rule, the fundamental rights are not affected. So the major difference between the national emergency and president rule is that in case of the national emergency, the state government remains intact, but in case of president's rule, it completely dissolves. So here, in case of national emergency, the state government is intact, and in case of president's rule, it is dissolved. There, in case of national emergency, the fundamental rights are affected, but here, in case of president's rule, the fundamental rights remain intact. Now, what happens with the fundamental rights under the financial emergency? So, nothing happens with the fundamental rights. The fundamental rights are not impacted or affected under the financial emergency. Now, how the national emergency can be revoked? So, national emergency can be revoked by a resolution by the parliament, by the Lok Sabha, and as far as the president's rule is concerned, only the president can announce its revocation, or it can be revoked only by the president. Okay, and financial emergency, as far as the financial emergency is concerned, only president can revoke the financial emergency. So it was a quick analysis of all three kinds of emergency provisions. If you liked it, okay, please do subscribe the channel, and if you think that any kind of improvement is needed, please do comment in the comment section so that I could improve my content and deliver to you according to your needs. Thank you.